Hey everybody, we're back. Well, it's been quite a while since I've done one of these. Probably 2 months at least. I think the last one was that I did was on Yes. So if you can't already tell, this one's going to be about Genesis, as you see all the Genesis around me. It's been one I've been wanting to do for a really long time because over the last decade or so, they've really become probably one of my favorite bands. They're on a Yes level for me. In terms of the progressive rock, those of you that support Two Legs, and this is Andy's Music Vault, if you didn't already know, the other leg. I am Andy Nichols. You know that I'm into prog and Yes and stuff like that. And Genesis was a band that took me quite a while to get into. Obviously, as a child of the 80s and 90s, I was aware of them commercially, in the MTV age with Phil. But it took me until I was in my really mid to late 20s before I really truly dived into the Peter Gabriel era and knew about it and, was still kind of just naive to say, that's not really that good. But obviously, expanding my palette musically with the likes of ELP and Tull and Floyd, it was only really a matter of time, I think, before I got the Genesis bug. And I can really say, and given my disappointment with Yes over the last 15 years, because they're so fractured now, and they went into two different camps with Anderson, Rayburn, and Wakeman, and now the official Yes, and they kind of left. Yes has left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth with how that band fractured into two different groups, and I still love the music they make, or they've made. I can't really get into the new stuff that they do now, especially with the new guy. I respect the tradition, but that not kind of walking away from Yes kind of gave me a chance to dive into Genesis. And over the last 10 years, I've really gotten to do that, and then really start to explore the solo careers, which, the solo careers other than Phil Collins, and I'm going to get into that once I kind of go through all the albums. And I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to go through all the albums, talk about my favorite tracks on the CDs. When I kind of, think other things in my collection that I've got here, some vinyl, some books and paraphernalia, some box sets, some of the times I've seen and Steve Hackett, and he has easily become my favorite member of Genesis in terms of his solo career. I have probably, out of all the members of Genesis, I have the most of his discography, and really kind of getting to learn, because when you watch Genesis videos, especially from early 70s, not much to him, and then you start to really learn get into his catalog and find out what he's about. And I've seen Steve Hackett probably 6 or 7 times now since the last 7 or 8 years, and he doesn't disappoint. I've met him twice, so he's a great guy. So Genesis, Genesis, if you look at their official discography, they've got, one album on each end of the bookends that really kind of officially bookend their career. I'm not talking about either of those albums, and those albums would be From Genesis to Revelation, which came out in 1968 or 9, and of course Calling All Stations, which I've heard a couple tracks from, but I don't know the album all that well, which was the last official Genesis album that was made with Ray Wilson, and I probably will give it a chance one of these days. I'm just not there with it yet. I know the one song, the title track I know because it's on the Platinum Collection, one of the many Genesis compilations. So, and I'm sure with time I'll get around to that album as well. I'm just not there with it yet. But for our purposes, we're gonna start with From Trespass to We Can't Dance, and I think that's probably what most Genesis fans go with as well. So you have the first Genesis album, Trespass. Okay, and now the CDs I'm going to show you today all are from that 2007, 2008 reissue campaign, when they brilliantly bundled a CD and a DVD in each set. And you could get them in box sets. Sadly, I didn't get all the box sets. I got one of them, which was the Genesis 70 to 75, which I want to say came out in maybe 2010. There's a blue one and a red one, and they are really like sought after now. Prized possessions to find those. 70, 75, 76 to 82, and then 83 to 97. And I don't have either of those two, but I have the first one, and I bought the other ones that individually after this box set, but I never got the box sets. So you've got 5.1 bonus videos and reissue interviews on each one. So the first album, Trespass. Now this is with the first true official incarnation of Genesis. Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, Anthony Phillips, and I believe John Silver was the drummer at the time in this first band. And if remember, Anthony Phillips was the first guitarist in Genesis before Steve Hackett and before Phil, obviously. I think it was John Silver. I think it was on this one. But good little first start. You know, didn't do much. I believe it was on ABC Records in America. Stagnation is a standout, and really my favorite track on the first album is a track called The Knife. Good little pounding number that kind of goes on for about 8 or 9 minutes. Dark. That's what we say about Genesis music, especially in the Gabriel era. You know, they probably didn't really resonate with American audiences because they were decidedly European. This was not an R&B band. You know, this was a band that wanted to show you their roots. And to most people in America, widespread America, especially in the South, that was a genre of music in the 70s that was never going to take off. You know, they were very, very big with college towns, and campuses, that kind of crowd. The college age student is what really would drive, very cult-like following band in the early 70s before they broke into America. So that's the first album, Trespass. Again, The Knife, great track. Looking for Someone, also the opening track. Great artwork, too. It's all represented on here as well. You see the knife on the back there, which is nice. Next album after that is when we have the beginning of the classic lineup with Steve Hackett entering the picture and Phil Collins. And this is for, my co-host Tom Hunyadi on Two Legs. For right now, I'm pretty sure this is his favorite album because it contains his favorite track. And this is 1971's Nursery Crime. Again, even like the artwork on these albums. We'll get to Foxtrot next with Paul Whitehead. He did that one. But even their artwork is very macabre. Look at that. Like, the girls, the lady swinging the head with the heads. So it's all very, art rocky, early progressive rock. Like I say, music that likes to makes you think a little bit. And again, 6 or 7 tracks on here. The Musical Box, classic Peter Gabriel era Genesis. If you've watched him on YouTube, he comes out in a dress and a fox's head takes. That's the other song. He does that too. He has the old man. He takes that off as well. The dress was another song. Peter Gabriel and his costumes. Look them up, folks, if you haven't seen them. Just look up early 70s Genesis videos, especially the 73 video at Shepperton Studios, which is just fantastic, and it's been cleaned up as well too. But the Musical Box for Absent Friends is on here. That's Phil's first vocal contribution to a Genesis record. One of my favorites, The Return of the Giant Hogweed. Again, with the tapping. You got the tapping there that opens the track by Steve Hackett. Way before Van Halen did it, Steve Hackett's got tapping. Listening to The Return of the Giant Hogweed. Seven Stones, Harold the Barrel, Harlequin, and The Fountain of Salmesis. So it's not an album. The individual tracks are very good on here on Nursery Crime. But you can't do better than The Musical Box and The Giant Hogweed for my money. Fountain of Salmesis is another one that's, requires a little bit of attention to get through. But they're starting to make inroads. I think they started to tour America after this album. Again, all the musical history in our heads, folks. Hard to retain it all. But, again, these are worth seeking out because, and they're all on YouTube, too. The reissue interviews that came with each of these discs are all on YouTube, which is great now. But even back then to have them. All right, so now we're getting into the meat and the potatoes of my favorite era of early Genesis. And that the next album, 1972's Foxtrot. I mean, this is there's the dress. I'm trying to get the book out to reduce the glare for you. Yeah, there's the dress and the fox's head, Paul Whitehead. You see the same Genesis early logo on here as well. So that was their kind of initial logo. And of course, this is again the same lineup, same guys. Probably considered one of the best progressive rock albums of all time. It certainly is. I mean, it's up there with Close to the Edge for me. Watcher of the Skies, Timetable, Get 'Em Out by Friday, Can Utility and the Coastliners, Steve Hackett's little intro to Supper's Ready, Horizons, and then, of course, the 23-minute, basically all of side 2 on the vinyl LP, Supper's Ready. And boy, with 6 or 7 movements. And, this is music you can't dance to. You're not going to go take your lady out on a Saturday night and boogie to Supper's Ready or Watcher of the Sky. Or maybe you will. Maybe you can if she likes Genesis. It's just incredible music. And to revisit it, we're getting into the fall time now here in the Northeast, and the leaves are changing. That's when I like listening to Genesis, because it is a darker music. You're not going to sit there on the 4th of July and blast Genesis. So you could, but for me, the themes of the Genesis music, the writing of it, always suits the kind of fall, and that's kind of why I listen to them. So I'm really ready to dive in and just kind of be down the rabbit hole with Genesis for a while. And it doesn't hurt that Steve Hackett's touring again soon, and he's touring Foxtrot at 50, this very album. So if you go to see him, he'll be doing all of Foxtrot and some of his solo stuff, and I will go see him again. But Supper's Ready, The Lover's Leap, The Guaranteed Eternal Sanctuary Man, Willow Farm, all these little kind of individual bits, kind of like Close to the Edge with those little 4 sections. There's so much going on in here. I think one of my favorite bits in Supper's Ready is the All Change. When Gabriel yells All Change and it goes into that Feel Your Body Melt with the keyboard going. I've always loved that one. But of course, the best part of Supper's Ready, for my money, is the Apocalypse in 9/8, which is the last part of Supper's Ready, which they even performed well up until the Invisible Touch tour in '86. Check that out. With Phil singing it. And as a side, I will say, I love Peter Gabriel Genesis, but I must say, I think Phil does a better job of singing the Gabriel material better live than Peter did. Go YouTube Apocalypse in 9/8 from the LA Forum in 1986. He absolutely crushes it. Or even listen to it on Seconds Out, the live album from '77. So I love the studio tracks with Gabriel on vocal. I love it, but I think Phil brought them to another power. Because as Phil's background as an actor, theatrical, it just came to him easy. It's like when he sings In the Cage on the Mama tour. He brings another level to it of energy. But in terms of a studio masterpiece, Foxtrot, it is. Excuse me for the sniffles. Then the next one up. Again, probably, my overall favorite album start to finish. Here we go. And it's autographed. Selling England by the Pound by the maestro himself, Mr. Steve Hackett. Came out in 1973. And I know it's Steve's favorite album as well because it was where he could really shine the most with his guitar playing. Dancing with the Moonlit Night. I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. Firth of Fifth, Tony Banks. More Fool Me. The Battle of Epping Forest. After the Ordeal. Cinema Show and Isle of Plenty. Now you've got these little smaller tracks jumbled in here, but the album is centered around 4 big epics, right, that tie the whole album together. Dancing with the Moonlit Night, great video of that. Again, an album that is decidedly British. This album, this is, so if you want to hear all these lyrics and Gabriel, and it's really, sometimes I don't even know what half them are, but this one is decidedly British in nature. Apparently, according to legend, John Lennon knew about it. I don't know if that's accurate, but, that's according to legend. He knew about the album as well, according to Steve Hackett. I don't know how true that is. I Know What I Like it's a shorter track, but Dancing with the Moonlit Night, classic, epic. Firth of Fifth, and the Cinema Show, and also the Battle of Epping Forest. Now, I have to be brutally honest with you. Until about a week ago, the Battle of Epping Forest, in all 11 minutes plus of its glory, is a track I couldn't get into. I saw Hackett do it live. I've seen the Musical Box, which is a Genesis tribute. I've seen them do it. I always felt it was too wordy, and it was hard to follow. Instrumentally, it was nice. I could follow it, But over the last week, something clicked, and I absolutely love the Battle of Epping Forest now. A lot going on in there. It's still a lot of lyrics, hard to follow, but the musicianship on it is absolutely awesome. I am so angry that I always dismissed it all these years, but I absolutely love the Battle of Epping Forest. Maybe seeing Steve Hackett do it with his band might have changed my opinion. There's a great version of his band with Nad Sylvan on vocals doing it now. Incredible track. But really, the Cinema Show and Firth of Fifth are the 2 best songs in this album. They're songs that Genesis kept into their medleys well into their career with Firth of Fifth and Cinema Show. I got to see them finally before they called it a day in New York City in December, and they incorporated a little bit of both. And it was especially that the ending bit, where Tony kind of shines on the Cinema Show, on his parts, on his keyboard parts. That was just goosebumps, really. And my friend that I went with, we were just sitting there going, "Wow, we're never going to see this again. They'll never see the likes of us again." That's lyrics to another Genesis song I'll get to. But yeah, 1973, Selling England by the Pound. Really, Genesis coming into their own. That they were in America. They had broken America now. There's that famous picture of them in Central Park, which I think adorns the inner cover here. Yeah, there it is, the rear cover. They had made it in America, playing New York, clubs in America. Now, next album. This is where things kind of start to go a little bit haywire. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And this is a little bit different. It's more of a paper kind of bound version of the CD that came in that box set. You either love it or you hate it. Now, I love The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I think disc 1 is phenomenal. I don't think there's nearly a daft track on the whole thing, on the whole of disc 1. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Fly on a Windshield, the Broadway melody of 74, Cocoon Cocoon, In the Cage, Grand Parade, Back in New York City, Hairless Heart, Counting Out Time, and the Carpet Crawlers. All great. Disc 2 is where most fans will tell you it starts to peter out a little bit. And I love the whole of the album, but I'm going to be honest, it does start to get a little bit tiresome. If you listen, to listen. But having said that, on the second disc, there are some individual great moments on here. The Colony of Slipperman. Now, costumes aside, Gabriel, again, this is well told. Gabriel with his costumes and his antics. By this point, we're really over the top. Check out his costume for the Colony of Slipperman. It's like grotesque. But the singing that was too much. But the song is fantastic. The Lamia, which is a great track that has a great solo from Steve Hackett on there as well. The Chamber of 32 Doors, Lily White Willith. These are all great tracks. The Light Goes Down on Broadway. But certain tracks, like, it just starts to wane a little bit. The Waiting Room, which is a great individual track. But when you listen to all these pieces, a lot of the time, and then Tony Banks, I think, says this in the book, which I'll talk about in a little bit, they have these kind of long instrumental sections on this album to give them time to tune, for the live show. Now, if you know your Genesis history, they went out and did the whole of this album on tour before Gabriel left. So if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have played certain tracks, but they played The Waiting Room, the Ravine and Riding the Scree and In the Rapids and it kind of peters out after such a great opening with The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. You can picture it. And I'll be honest, I have a book about The Lamb too by a guy by the name of Kevin Holm Hudson. I've read it. I'm still trying to figure out what the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway means, other than the character Rail and kind of this supernatural experience that he kind of goes through in New York City, like a Puerto Rican punk, which is what he's supposed to be. But it doesn't stop the music from being awesome. And that's the track that you'll hear the most, if you're listening to satellite radio and you're listening to, classic vinyl, you might hear The Lamb. You're not going to hear Back in New York City. Forget about FM radio. FM radio has been dead for decades. But even satellite radio, they'd be hard-pressed to play anything else but maybe The Lamb, or maybe if you're listening to deep tracks, they'll play something else. But, a difficult album. An album that really divided the band because Peter Gabriel, as you know, wrote all the lyrics for The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. And Genesis, up to this point, had been a very, very democratic band. Everybody had their say. Everybody had their... But the power trio really had been Banks, Rutherford, and Gabriel. Because those were the three that went to school together at Charterhouse in England in the 50s. So now that Peter had written the whole of the album for himself, Tony really does not like the album. And that's very evident if you watch the interviews. Tony Banks is not a fan of most of the album. I think he likes it, musically. But it's an album that they never tried to play other than the initial tour, start to finish. I did see the musical box do The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and they did it well. They had the slides that Genesis used on tour, which they gave their permission to use as well. And even again, it's a long album. It's a lot. It's a lot like Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes, 80 minutes. You've got to have a lot of patience to get through this album. But having said that, when I'm in the mood, I will listen to it straight through and enjoy it. But that first disc is some of the best music that ever came out of this era. So yeah, this is from the box set and the Lamb and that crazy, crazy artwork as well. And then that's it. Peter Gabriel leaves. They do their last show, and now Genesis is reduced to a foursome. And who's going to sing lyrics? Well, they're not really sure. They audition loads and loads of people, and lo and behold, who wins the audition? Phil Collins himself. And they go on to make probably one of my favorite albums of all time by Genesis, by anybody. Certainly, I mean, Genesis got what? How many studio albums? A dozen, 13? I don't know. But this has got to be in top three or four. And that's 1976, A Trick of the Tail, by just the four people. This is Phil, Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, and Steve Hackett just doing this album that came out in 76. And were they going to make it? Were they going to do it as a foursome? I know, watch the interview from this. Phil says, well, we'll just do instrumentals. We don't even need to have a singer, because by this time Phil was with Brand X, and they did a lot of that as well. But what a well-produced album. I believe Dave Henschel had produced some of this as well. Dance on a Volcano, Entangled, Squonk. I know that Phil says they were going for their Zeppelin sound with that. Some lighter songs, Madman Moon, which Tony Banks wrote, still very nice. Robbery, Assault, and Battery, which is kind of lightweight, but I kind of like it. Great playing on that. And then probably one of the best songs ever, Ripples, which goes on and on and on, which is great. Probably one of my least favorite songs on the whole album is the title track, Trick of the Tail. Very lightweight. But we end with that epic, epic closer, Los Endos, the instrumental, with a little nod to Gabriel with the last lyric. There's an angel standing in the sun. But again, short record, but powerful record. Great playing on it. The drums especially are so Because remember, they're trying to prove a point now. Peter's gone. Can they make it? And I'll tell you what, they made it. I mean, this is really one of the best albums, one of the best covers, one of the best produced. Everything about it is just a home run on this record, from start to finish. Even a song like Entangled, which is a nice acoustic song, right? A ballad. Even that comes across well. But Phil's not writing at this point. Now Phil's singing, he's drumming on the studio version, but he's not writing. The songwriting still is very Rutherford Banks with a little bit of Hackett, and not much more of Steve Hackett, as we're going to find out very soon. So it's decidedly that's the power couple that's writing all the stuff for the tour. They drafted in former Yes drummer Bill Bruford and King Crimson drummer Bill Bruford to drum alongside of Phil for this for the tour, for the Trick of the Tail tour. And if you watch some of the footage from that the Genesis Live in Concert, you can see Bill do that when they both drum on Supper's Ready and Los Endos. Incredible footage. But I'd say a good start to the Phil Collins era. I'll say so for singing. That's Trick of the Trail. Next album, and this would be Steve Hackett's last album, Wind and Wuthering, 1977. Rutherford calls this kind of more like the feminine side of Genesis, and I believe Tony Banks calls it his favorite album with Genesis. This or Duke, one of the two. Wind and Wuthering, the last album with Steve, and the same four guys. The 11th Earl of Mar, great track in Genesis tradition. Next track, One for the Vine, one of my favorite of late. Seeing Steve do it with his band, phenomenal. Your Own Special Way, kind of a light hit. Watt Gorilla, All in a Mouse's Night, Blood on the Rooftops, Unquiet Slumbers for the Sleepers, In That Quiet Earth, Into Afterglow. These are songs that have featured heavily into Genesis set list too, especially Afterglow. That's been played a lot lately. And a little bit of a Bare Tree, but it is the end of an era. It's lighter than A Trick of the Tail. It's definitely not in your face as much. Again, it's definitely a lighter of an album, lighter feel to it, but it's all there. Blood on the Rooftops, great track as well. What Girl I've never been really crazy about. Your Own Special Way being the hit, but the 11th Earl of Mar and One for the Vine for our home run tracks on Wind and Wuthering from 1977. So 1977 comes, Steve Hackett departs, but before they depart, they release a live album. Of course, it's in the other box, but this is the vinyl edition. This is the Half Speed remastering, which came out a year ago. This is the 1977 live album, Seconds Out, and taken from the Trick of the Tail tour as well. So you're not really getting any wind and weathering material on this one, but it's still, this is where you really, I think, see Phil Collins come into his own as a singer, especially on tracks like Supper's Ready and The Cinema Show and the Carver and everything. So this is Steve's last album. He thinks he's mixed too low, but I did see him last year. They did the Seconds Out tour and they recreated it. He's got a live album out now too. So that is the end of the Steve Hackett era in Genesis. And I'm zipping ahead here because I've got a lot to get to, and I don't want to be here for an hour and a half either. Those of you that watch Two Legs, we like to keep it about an hour or so. So we're already up to 1978. And then there were three. Literally. Not the best album cover. Got to admit. Not a fan of this album cover. But the music, again, now Mike Rutherford's now doing bass and guitar in lieu of Steve Hackett being out of the picture. And now the Banks and Rutherford songwriting team really are responsible for everything on this album. But the playing is tight. Phil is kind of in the middle of marital issues, the first of many, sadly. But his playing on here is great. Down and Out, Undertow, Snowbound, Burning Rope. Listen to these tracks. I mean, these are just incredibly melodic tracks, tracks that come back again, especially the keyboard work. I mean, Banks is, I know Tony's great on everything, but except for maybe The Lamb, which he doesn't like. But really, even though it's a dodgy album cover, there's got some great moments on it. Deep in the Mother Lode, which became their album opener on the next tour. Many Too Many, Scenes from an Ice Dream, The Lady Lies, and of course, closing the album with Genesis' first real, true, bona fide hit, Follow You, Follow Me, from 1978. Kind of where people were like, oh, that's a good song. I like that one. So that, bigger than I Know What I Like, bigger than Your Own Special Way. Those are very, very low. This, Follow You, Follow Me did very, very well and kind of got them on the map a little bit. But again, nothing really from Phil as a writer yet. So dodgy cover, but great playing on it. Riffs. I was just listening to it last night again. There's so many good albums with Genesis that it's hard to go back to all of them all the time. You have your favorites, but I must have listened to Burning Rope and Deep in the Mother Lode on repeat for about an hour. They're just that good. And I cannot recommend, if you can get your hands on the two discs with the 5.1 and the visuals on the second disc. I don't know how available they are anymore. I know they did a reissue with one disc of these, but the two disc ones, these ones I think were manufactured in Europe, and worth every penny as well. Even tour, you get reproduction of tour programs on the disc as well. Nebworth, and some music videos as well. Many Too Many. Snowbound. Tony wrote that track. Great track. 1980. Next, moving on up to Mr. Albert, as his name is, and the oft played, in my collection anyway, Duke from 1980. This is where Genesis starts to, embrace the future and also still retain their prog roots. And I don't listen, obviously Genesis went commercial, they went a little poppy. They never, ever, ever ignored their progressive rock roots all the way up until We Can't Dance. I can't speak to Calling on Stations, I don't know it. But they did not just become, they're just a poppy and they only write singles. Did they write singles? Yes. Were they massively huge singles? Yes. However, on those albums are long, proggy type songs. So if you don't know them, you need to listen to them. You need to listen to the Genesis albums from the 80s and not just assume that just because Phil, as a solo artist, takes off, Genesis is also equally, sappy and commercial. They're not. There's hits, and there's bona fide hits on the next albums I'm going to go through. You all know them, but the album tracks on these are, at their core, still what made Genesis Genesis. Okay, they're still on there. Listen to them. Don't follow the masses. You know what they say about masses? Remove the S and remove the M and you are one. Duke, Behind the Lines, Duchess, which I believe is Tony Banks' favorite track. Guide vocal. This is all like a suite. It was all going to be a suite. One big long suite, but then they broke it up. The big hits on here: Misunderstanding, Turn It On Again. Obviously, you know those songs. Deeper Cuts, Heat Haze, Alone Tonight, Cul-de-sac, Please Don't Ask, which that's Phil Collins' first, he wrote it. This was about his divorce. Heartbreaker of a song. Heartbreaker. But Genesis does it well. Also in Genesis history here, this is apparently where he wrote In the Air Tonight and didn't show it to the band. He did show it to the band. There's conflicting reports. I probably think he did show it to the band and they just said, no, we don't want it. But Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford say that he didn't, but I think Phil did. They just passed on it. But nonetheless, super awesome album. Again, Duke's Travels, Duke's Ends to end it. Linking, again, this is Genesis, kind of 1980. Music's changing. It's going a little more poppy. So you've got your hits, but you've got your epics on here with Duke Travel. The last 3 to 4 minutes of Duke's Travels into Duke's End, I mean, I can't even describe how good it is. Where Phil's drumming is off the charts. When they even try to do it again in 2007, he can't because he just can't do it anymore. He can't keep up with it. But, I mean, it's some of the best music I've ever heard in my life, and I never, ever tired of listening to it. This is an album that's 41 years old. 41 years old, and it still sounds fresh as when it was made back then. Duchess. Thank God I got to see them do Duchess in New York in December. Obviously dropped several keys, but they did Duchess. They did this, became one of their best albums of all time and much celebrated. I can't say the same for the next one. The next album is my least favorite album in the Genesis canon as I know it, and that's 1981's Abacab. For me, this one is just too rhythmically based. Not that it's poppy. I just, Abacab is a great song. No Reply at All is a great song. Man on the Corner, I remember that music video as a kid. Me and Sarah Jane, Dodo Lurker, Who Done It, another record. These songs I can't get my head around yet. And I know this was a massively, massively successful record based on the song Abacab, which is an awesome song. Phil's, rocking it. And I believe Abacab was the first record that they recorded at the farm, which was their own studio, which they had made, because I know that Duke was recorded at Phil's home, I think, to help him out, but Abacab was the first one done at the farm. And listen, I didn't like the Battle of Epping Forest till last week. Maybe I'll like Who Done It, or Like It or Not, or, Keep It Dark. I can't get into these tracks right now. So, if you're watching and you know Abacab well, give me some recommendations on why I should give it another try. Because it's just an album that I can't really get into. I can't get into it other than the title track and Man on the Corner. I can't do it. Although it is significant because on this tour, I believe they played in full for the last time Supper's Ready. Yeah, I believe at the Marquee. I have a bootleg recording of that. They played Supper's Ready in '82. So I believe the Abacab tour was the last time they played Supper's Ready. And of course, the live album from this period, which I'll get to in a little bit, is Three Sides Live, because I've got a different box for that as well. And that's got some good stuff on it too. But Abacab, just not there with it yet. But I am there, very much there, with the next album, 1983's self-titled Genesis, otherwise known as the Shapes album. Big hits on this one: Mama, That's All, Legal Alien, which was a funny video, which probably can't be shown anymore today. Home by the Sea, second Home by the Sea, Just a Job to Do, Silver Rainbow, It's Gonna Get Better. Those are kind of the lesser known tracks, but still good. But Mama, Home by the Sea, and second Home by the Sea, that's Genesis just rocking it out. Mama's a little creepy, kind of got that marching beat throughout the whole thing. I think they opened up the Invisible Tour with that too. You watch the video footage of that tour in Wembley when they open up with Mama and Phil comes out into the stage. Doom, doom, ksh, doom, doom, ksh. I mean, if you ever want to see the command of somebody have command of an audience like Phil had, very few at that time could still do it. Freddie Mercury could, obviously. Live Aid, Queen, he could do it. But Phil, watch Phil do that when Mama starts, when it comes out. It's incredible. Very Lennon-esque song too, if I don't mind saying. Illegal Alien's funny. I like the sci-fi-ness of Home by the Sea. Um, you're taking it all too hard. I enjoy that as well. They probably could have came up with a better name than just Genesis for this one in '83, but a great tour, the Mama Tour, that came in as well. There's video of that too, and I'll get to the video stuff when I get through the rest of the albums, which I'm almost done with. But 1983's self-titled Genesis, otherwise known as The Shapes, fantastic record, way better than Abacab. And then we get to the one that everybody loves to hate because it's too much like Phil, and it's just poppy stuff. Invisible Touch, 1986. Okay, those of a certain age probably remember the video. Some of you said lyrically, what's that song about? Invisible Touch. Some people said it's about drugs. I don't know. Poppy song, Beatlesque. I enjoy it. See, I love all eras. I like the poppy stuff. I love the deep, darker stuff for the most part. So, I love Invisible Touch the same that I love, Watcher of the Skies. And I think that's something that Phil Collins tried to convey to fans, especially on this tour in '86, because Genesis by this point were so huge. Phil Collins was so huge everywhere, no jacket required. I'm not really going to kind of get into his solo career because there's been enough said and written about Phil, and I love his solo music too. Not as much as I love the others, but 1986, Phil Collins is like king of the world everywhere. Solo-wise, Genesis, so Genesis is benefiting from it, Phil's benefiting from it. It's a great album, Invisible Touch, Tonight, the full 8-minute version, not the 3-minute single edit, the full version of Tonight, fantastic. Land of Confusion, one of the best music videos ever made, with the puppets recreated. Who could forget Ron and Nancy Reagan there, and the Beatles and Mick Jagger. Great video. In Too Deep, balladly love song. Okay. One of my favorites, the next one, Anything She Does. Love that one. That doesn't really get any recognition or talked about at all. Love Anything She Does. But probably my favorite song on the whole album, the next track, Domino. 10 minutes, old Genesis, true to form, into 2 parts in The Glow of the Night, and then to part 2, The Last Domino. Part 1 in The Glow of the Night is kind of just lyrics and going back and forth. And then it goes into high gear with The Last Domino. It's been a staple of their sets starting in that tour. They did it again I think they did it again. Maybe I don't think they did it in We Can't Dance tour, but they did it again in 2007. If you've seen that documentary, the poor light guy programming it, he couldn't get the cues down, because during The Last Domino, and they did it again. Obviously, The Last Domino. When I just saw them in New York City, there you go, The Last Domino. Throwing It All Away. Another poppy song in the vein of That's All. And then The Brazilian, another instrumental, which I enjoy too. And the extras. So Invisible Touch, 1986. Genesis is, I believe, only #1 album in the United States too. Invisible Touch. And then we get to the end. Officially, the Phil Collins end, really. Quite a gap, though. Okay? So the next studio album doesn't come out until 1991. 91 or 92? 91. Right? I think. Well, somebody will correct me. I think it's 91. We Can't Dance. Now, that's a song that I really don't care for that well. I don't like I Can't Dance. I don't like the song. I don't like the video. I don't like that. However, everything else on We Can't Dance is awesome. No Son of Mine. Jesus, He Knows Me. Driving the Last Spike. All 10 minutes of it. Again, if you think they just went poppy, they didn't. Listen to Driving the Last Spike. Now, that's just a song about railroad workers and the pails that they went through and the strife that they went to, and a guy leaving his family and having to go to work. But there's a lot of meaning and there's a lot of in these lyrics, They'll never see the likes of us again. He's talking about the railroad workers, but he could really be talking about himself and the band, as far as I'm concerned. And it comes across. Tell Me Why. Living Forever. Hold in My Heart. Of course, we all know that one. The Way of the World. Since I Lost You. Another heartbreaking song that Phil wrote for his friend Eric Clapton, whose son passed away when he fell out of the window in the early 1990s. Heartbreaker. And then the last track on the album, Fading Lights. It's like they knew their band, they knew it was ending. they couldn't maintain the level of success that they had, and Phil obviously wanted to go in other directions. And what better way to end an album than Fading Lights? And one of my sought after collections for a long time was the vinyl LP. And I got this as an import, UK. It's not a reissue. This is an original issue from '91. No gatefold, just a pocket with the two LPs slid in there. But I would say from the Phil Collins era Genesis, if I had to rank my favorites, I would go Duke, Trick of the Tail, and probably We Can't Dance. I probably would rank. That's how I would rank the Phil era albums, with like Invisible Touch and the Mama album neck and neck. Very, very close. Very hard to do to rank those Phil albums, but that's it for the Phil Collins era, really. I mean, Genesis officially called it a day in '96, but they did tour massively for this in America as well, and their Nebworth performance is legendary from that tour. But they called it a day in '96, and then vowed and they wanted to continue, and they got Ray Wilson in to do the Calling All Stations record, and that's a good track individually. But I have to be honest, I don't know anything else on it, so I will give it a chance if you guys think I should. So let's move into some box set territory. I showed you the 70, 75 one, and before we dive into the solo careers and we call this a day. So Genesis released all these box sets. You saw the 70, 75. One of the next ones I got was the live box. So that's this gray one here, live 73 to 2007. And Nick Davis deserves a round of applause. Some Genesis fans really they hate what he did with these remixes because they sound too bright. I love them. You might read the forums and Hoffman forums, and they'll say, get the original Virgin or get the original Atlantic. And if you're into that, and I have a couple of them, but I think they sound great. I play them on my stereo. I've ripped them. I play them digitally. To me, they're fine. So the live box. So you've got a nice little book here, okay, and you get some live material as well with a full booklet of all Genesis history up until that point, and a live CD as well with, I believe, let me just double check. Yeah, you're getting Live at the Rainbow from 73. So if you've seen that video footage, I think some of that is on the archive collection box. I forgot to grab that one. Genesis archive box in the back. Some of that's on there as well. So you're getting the 1973 concert, restored audio, DVD 5.1, and CD as well. So that opens up your box set, and then you get the live stuff. So the first Genesis live album, Genesis Live 1973. Again, short album. They did not include Supper's Ready on it. Watcher of the Skies, Get 'Em Out by Friday, Hogweed, Musical Knife, and the Musical Box, and the Knife. Sorry, spoke too fast. The first live album really kind of encompasses all of the Gabriel era. No Lamb material, but on this CD you get Lamb tracks officially issued here. So from the Shrine Auditorium in January 75, you're getting Back in New York City, Windshield, Broadway Melody of 74, Anyway, and the Chamber of 32 Doors as bonus tracks on the Genesis Live CD. Now, I didn't grab the archive box set back there, but Genesis has got two archive box sets as well. The first one encompasses all their early material, Twilight Ale House, all that early Charterhouse stuff, and into the end of the Peter Gabriel era, which has a full live performance of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. However, he re-recorded his vocals for that, which I actually enjoy, but his vocals he felt wasn't up to par. So if you listen to that box set, it's Genesis Archive number. I think it's the Genesis Archive box number 2. I think it's the first one. All the Lamb material is all re-recorded by like a 50-year-old something Peter Gabriel in the late 90s, which to me sounds really good, but purists won't like it. But that's the best of that. Seconds Out, I showed you the vinyl. They reproduced it very nice here in this box set in a little book that holds up very well with 2 CDs as well in this box. Okay, Into the 80s, 3 sides live. This is basically a highlights of the Abacab tour, as I mentioned. You get a nice live version of One for the Vine on here, as well as Fountain of Salmesis and a medley of In the Cage with the Cinema Show and the Colony of Slipperman from The Lamb. Now, the We Can't Dance Tour is represented on here with The Way We Walk. Finally, they made sense with this one. If you've browsed CD stores, you see the longs, the shorts. Now, I don't know why they made them two separate CDs you had to buy. Bundling them as one was the right way to do it. So this is basically a live CD of the We Can't Dance Tour, and they had a nice old medley on this as well. Which that opened up early parts of the sets with Volcano, The Lamb, Musical Box, Firth the Fifth, and I Know What I Like. YouTube that as well too, from the We Can't Dance Tour. Fantastic. And then taking us to the current time of then, you had the Live Over Europe tour from 2007, which is when they reunited after their 15-year gap there, when they ended it, when they called it a day in 92, and they got back together again in 07. They toured Europe and America. I did not see that tour, sadly. But this is, again, you're not going to get much of the Gabriel era here. You're getting the best of the threesome era. You're getting mostly Duke, a little of Abacab, a lot of Invisible Touch, a lot of the Mama album, and a little of We Can't Dance. You're getting a little bit of the old stuff. You're getting a little Cage, Cinema Show, Los Endos, I Know What I Like. Ripples, but mostly when it came down to it, you're getting the best of the three guys, when they became into their own, which is fine. I know, they should all play their own stuff. They should play the Genesis Gabriel stuff. They're not going to do that. They're going to play what they want to play. Next box. We'll move into some vinyl and then into some solo stuff, and then we'll finish up. The movie box. So this is all the videos to said tours as well. And this is from 81 to 2007. So you're getting actually concert film footage of these same tours. So, which is really, amazing. And some of it's all on YouTube. But again, 3 Sides Live, concert film. One of the ones I was really happy to get was the Mama tour, because that footage is hard to come by. But we've got a DVD release of the Mama tour as well, bundled in here. And you've seen these probably all for sale on DVDs, and I'm not even sure they're on Blu-ray. Of course, this is a famous one. This has been on DVD. This is the one that I've talked about where they open up with Mama, with Phil. Check this one out as well. Sadly, there is no footage of them doing Supper's Ready and Apocalypse 9/8, because by the time they filmed this, that got dropped from the set list because Phil couldn't handle it. Okay. The Way We Walk, concert film, same set list as I showed you before, and the same thing as When in Rome in 2007. You probably have all seen this as well. So this is basically the companion to the audio portion. So you've got the audio portion, and if you want to watch everything, you can watch it on here as well. A couple of vinyl treats, and we'll jump into some solo stuff, and then we'll move on. So one of my prideful pieces of my collection is the 70 to 75 vinyl box set that I held up the CD version of earlier, but here you're finally getting 180 gram pressings here of all the albums, fully restored artwork, heavy duty vinyl. Not going to take them all out. I'll just show you the spines as well. Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, Selling England, and The Lamb. But there's the spine. There's the titles, all in there. All I think Selling England by the Pound is the only one that's not a gatefold. But there's our track listing on the back for all of them. Very, very glad I got this one. I got it because it goes for Hen's Teeth now. Very hard to find as well. But if I'm playing vinyl and I'm in a vinyl mood for Genesis, this is the one I'm going for. I've got older pressings, but that one can't be beat. Most recent acquisition. Yes, another compilation. The Last Domino. Do we need another compilation? Well, I didn't have one on vinyl, so I got it. So this basically, you want to not going to call it a cash grab, but it's a nice collection of the final tour, that they put together with all the shots, Phil, and this is it, man. So it's only the studio tracks. I think 1 or 2 might be remixed, but there's the track listing on the back as well, and really bookending. They've called it a career. That's going to be it. So this was probably one of the most recent things I got. Let's move on to solo stuff. Now, solo material. Let's do Peter first. Okay. Peter Gabriel, incredible on his own. Lots of albums. Might be touring again recently. Take a sip real quick. Rumored to be touring again and having an album coming out in 2023. Sure hope so. Have all of his albums, but his first four and the live album, if you're going to start, is all you need, in my opinion. Yes, you need So. You can get Us, which has some good tracks, but his first four solo albums, which are all titled Peter Gabriel, are just awesome pieces of work. The first one, 1977, otherwise known as Car, has the hit Salisbury Hill. Also has one of my favorite tracks, Here Comes the Flood, and Humdrum. You know, real hodgepodge type of stuff. Barbershop quartet type stuff on here with Excuse Me and Down the Dolce Vita, which my friend Ed loves. He's always telling me about that one. I love that song, Down the Dolce Vita. Yes, Ed, giving you a shout out. Produced by Bob Ezrin and came out, this is his first Salisbury Hill. Moribund the Burgermeister. Very Genesis-esque. But Here Comes the Flood it closes the album. First one, 77, here, Salisbury Hill, classic Gabriel. Second one, Peter Gabriel 2, otherwise known as Scratch, because he scratches the cover. This is a promotional copy. Out of the four, my least favorite, but there's some good ones on here as well. This one was produced by Bob Fripp of King Crimson. On the Air, DIY, Mother of Violence, White Shadow. Those are like probably my three favorites on the second one, out of the four. But a darker album, surprise, surprise, produced by Bob Fripp, King Crimson, Yellow, Darkness. So yeah, second one. There's a promotional copy as well from Atlantic Records. Number 3, otherwise known as Melt, 1980. Probably most people consider it Peter Gabriel's finest album. It's either this one or the next one, but I got to be honest, it's probably going to be this one. Phil Collins comes back to help him on this one as well. Peter has no cymbals on this album. It's just regular drums. There's no cymbals on. Listen to it. Intruder, No Self-Control, I Don't Remember, Family Snapshot, and Through the Wire. Games Without Frontiers, Not One of Us, Lead a Normal Life, and Biko. His probably start to finish his best album. Yes, So is a masterpiece. It's got In Your Eyes and Don't Give Up and Sledgehammer, but 1980s Melt, just a cool cover. Look at that, his face is melting, and the track for Stephen Biko at the end. This is Peter becoming more of a kind of into world music, and the WOMAD. Obviously, if you know your Peter Gabriel, he founded WOMAD around this time, and Genesis actually got back together again to do a concert to help Peter because he got into such financial hardships that he was being threatened. So in '82, they actually got back together again, and with Gabriel and Hackett at the end, and did a concert of all Gabriel era music. And sadly, it was not professionally recorded or filmed. There are bootlegs of it, which are worth seeking out for sure. But this is all around that same time. And became much more evident on his next album too, Peter Gabriel 4, otherwise known as Security here in the U.S. Rhythm of the Heat, San Jacinto, I Have the Touch, Shock the Monkey, and my personal favorite on this record, a track called Wallflower, which is basically just a kind of song about not giving up and staying strong, which I think is just a tremendous message, especially these days. But I love, but this, I think most people will say this is probably, if you're not going to go with So, they're going to say go with Security or Peter Gabriel 4. Now, if you want the best of all four of those albums, you can grab the live album, which came out the next year in '83. This is Peter Gabriel Plays Live, and this basically sums up his whole previous four albums. Jerry Marotta, who we interviewed on Two Legs, plays on this album. I showed it to him, we interviewed him. So you've got one non-album track on here, which is a track called I Go Swimming, which is just hysterical. Which kind of, it picks up and it has tons of energy. Humdrum, On the Air. Yeah, so in some cases, the live tracks are better than the studio cuts, especially On the Air, No Self-Control, San Jacinto, Rhythm of the Heat, especially as the opener. But yeah, Peter Gabriel Plays Live. That's Peter for me. I'm not going to jump into everything with Peter as well. Let me jump into Hackett here real quick. Steve Hackett, as I told you at the top, my favorite guy now. I never thought I would have liked anything this guy did. I just went on a whim to see his concert in 2015 and said, okay, I'll go. Knew most of the Genesis stuff, didn't know anything he did. I have since in the 8 years now become a huge Hackett fan in my own right. So I'm just going to zip through his albums real quick. Above my shoulder, you see his first one, Voyage of the Acolyte, signed by him, which I got a couple of years ago. This is the same album on CD, Voyage of the Acolyte. Ace Phil Collins is on this as well as Mike Rutherford. So if you want to hear a little bit what Genesis would sound like in between The Lamb and, say, Trick of the Tail, listen to Acolyte. Great record. Star of Sirius, Phil sings on that. Shadow of the Hierophant, all 11 minutes of it. Awesome. Next one, Please Don't Touch. Slowly becoming one of my favorites. Why? Because there's a wonderful track on here called Icarus Ascending, which I saw him do the first time I saw him live, which on the album version is sung by Richie Havens, if you know who Richie Havens is. But Icarus Ascending is absolutely awesome. Hoping Love Will Last. He's got a guest vocalist on that. Phil Earhart of Kansas, Steve Walsh, Chester Thompson's also on here as well. That's the second one. Third, Hackett's, and I don't have all of them. He's got a ton. I'm just going to zip through the ones I have. Spectral Mornings. Did he sign this one too? He did. See, I've met him a few times. Spectral Mornings, 1979. Every Day. If you're a Hackett fan, you know Every Day is always in his set list as well. Every Day, Clocks. That's in his current sets. But the title track, Spectral Mornings. If you're waking up, have a cup of coffee, put Spectral Mornings on. You won't be disappointed. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I just listen to it, have my cup of coffee, and listen to Spectral Mornings. My day is set. You know, there's something about Steve Hackett that is very pure, and he's just carrying the legacy of Genesis on. And so getting to learn his discography and going through it, that's what shines through. You know, he's not about the money. I mean, obviously he's a businessman. He wants to make money. He makes live albums. He's an artist, but he's just a good soul. And it comes across, you know, the few times I've met him, talked to him, told him what songs I liked and why I liked, you know, why I wanted to, or I liked his latest album or asked him about a track. He's just a very, very pure soul, and it's evident in all his music. And that's why I've dived in, you know, like I have over the last decade with Hackett. 1980, an album called Defector, The Steps, awesome track, learned it a couple of years ago. Highly Strung, 1983, Beyond the Shrouded Horizon. I'm jumping around here a little bit. Out of the Tunnel's Mouth, there's a great track on this one called Emerald and Ash. Okay, To Watch the Storms, a little later. And then we're going to get into his more recent solo stuff. Now, Wolflight, signed again. I think I like Steve Hackett. 2015. This is the material I saw him play live for the first time, and it was absolutely incredible. Out of the Body, Wolflight, Love Song to a Vampire, The Wheels Turning. It's like if you were watching music for The Lord of the Rings, possibly. That's what this music could be on. It's when I hear it, that's what I listen to. It's cinematic. There's soundscapes in it. It's music that was made for this kind of stuff, you know. 2017, The Night Siren. This is another good album as well. Beyond the Smoke was a really awesome track to see done live as well. And he just churns these albums out quick. 2019, At the Edge of, can't really see it there with the shadow, the reflection. At the Edge of Light. Saw him in 2019. Has a nice little kind of tribute song to Chris Squire of Yes on here called Under the Eye of the Sun. And I asked him about that. I said, that sounds like a Yes track. And he goes, well, I was kind of, I was trying to give Chris Squire a little bit of a tribute there. And it's awesome. And his most recent one, which came out just last year, Surrender of Silence. And the current song that he's playing from this on his live shows, I believe, is the track called The Devil's Cathedral. Great track. Now, this man knows how to market himself. Let me tell you something. He has a contract with this label called Inside and Out. Look at these live albums. Look at these live albums. The guy puts out a CD and a DVD of nearly every tour. So, just so you don't know, Steve Hackett is starting around 2013, started doing Genesis Revisited tours because I guess, it made sense for him financially to do Genesis and his own stuff. He's not going to fill up, maybe he's not going to do as well in America if he's playing his own Steve Hackett material. I would go, but probably not a lot of people would. So he's giving fans what they want, which is great. So now he's doing these series of Genesis Revisited stuff, and he's churning out a live album of every tour he's done. So the first one, let me see, Genesis Live, I think, well, no, I don't know if that was the first one. This was the first one. A whopper of a CD. Genesis Revisited, and I'm not talking to you, Siri. Genesis Revisited live at Hammersmith. I think 3 CDs and a DVD. Incredible. Royal Albert Hall, same thing. And he's doing everything. He's doing stuff from his period of Genesis. So from Nursery Crime to Wind and Wuthering. And then he's doing a smattering of his own stuff too. Some of these was just Genesis. Some of them is a combination. My favorite one, for a couple reasons. The next live album was Steve Hackett, The Total Experience, live in Liverpool. Why? Now, you probably know, because you know that if you watch Two Legs, I'm a Liverpool guy since I went to school there and I lived there. I wasn't at the Steve Hackett Liverpool show, but I did see him on this tour. So the album I showed you before, Wolflight, this was him touring Wolflight. So you're getting that material and you're getting the Genesis material and some of his own stuff. So this, to me, still remains my personal favorite because it was the first time I saw him. And now, the Icarus Ascending version I was talking about, Star of Sirius, Ace of Wands. So you're getting his own stuff, the Genesis stuff, his new stuff. So that just, he just keeps churning them out. Live at Birmingham, I believe this was the Wind and Wuthering one. Yeah, this was celebrating Wind and Wuthering. Damn glare. And then he's got a new one that just came out, but I don't have it yet. This next one I want to say was from 2018, which was Genesis Revisited with an orchestra live at the Royal Festival Hall. Steve Hackett and his band. And his band, I got to say, are awesome. Rob Townsend, Roger King on the keys, Craig Blundell, I believe, on drums, and I forget who's playing bass. He used to have Jonas Reingold for a while, or maybe he still is. And then he had the fellow that worked with Anderson, Ronya Stolt, for a while. But yeah, I mean, how he just turns these things out so quick. And then the most recent one up until this last one is Selling England by the Pound and Spectral Mornings. So, I mean, there's like 5 or 6 live albums, and he just released another one last week for the Seconds Out tour. So that's just that's an overview of Genesis. I've got some banks. Mike and the Mechanics, I think, is some great stuff too, obviously. But I'm really happy to have discovered Hackett. I think he has been overlooked in the Genesis, career and canon. Oh, actually, one last thing here. If you want to kind of read yourself up a little bit, look for this sucker, Genesis Chapter and Verse. This is Genesis in their own words, with lots of photos in here as well, too, covering all the era, even the Ray Wilson era. It's kind of like, it's my Bible, obviously, Chapter and Verse. So if look for this, you could probably get it pre-owned, used as well, because I don't think you can get it new anymore. But stories about, from Genesis managers, PR people, radio people that helped bring them to America. Interviews with Chester Thompson and Darryl Sturmer, the guys that played with them in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It's all in here. Richard McPhail, should give him a shout out. He was their roadie in the early days. It's all in here. Tony Stratton Smith, Tony Smith, their manager. It's all in here. How they went, how they became involved with Showco and staging their shows with lighting and how they kind of became the band to do all that stuff. And when you go to a Genesis concert or you watch them, the lighting cues are everything when you watch these songs. So it's all in that book. So, that's my overview of Genesis, really, so over the last decade or so. This is what I've collected is what you see there. And I'm happy that I finally took the plunge to get into Genesis after spending most of my adult life really kind of disowning it. But I jumped down and I haven't looked back. So let me know in the comments if where you're at with Genesis fandom. Do you hate them? Do you like them? Did I miss anything? I'm sure I did, so please let me know. What are some of your favorites? If you disagree with me, let me know. Have you met anybody from Genesis? What about the solo stuff? How do you feel about? Like I didn't even show any Phil stuff. I didn't think there was any need to. Clearly, I'm a Hackett bias towards Steve, but let me know what you think. And if you haven't discovered any of this yourself after what you watched today, take a dive in and let me know in the comments what you think. But I've gone on for long enough than now, so until the next time, we'll do something else. I don't know who we'll do next. Maybe the Moody Blues. I've got maybe the we'll see. I'll think about it. You guys let me know. Let me know who you want me to do next in terms of an artist or a band in the prog rock vein, and we'll take it under advisement. But thanks for watching. It's been a while since I did one, but I had the time to do one now. Look out for a new episode of Two Legs as well. That is out there now too. That's episode 180, which will drop also today as well. Tom and I are talking about McCartney acoustic. If we were to go see a McCartney show and it was all acoustic, what songs would we want to see? And we were joined by a lovely chap who goes by the name of Judge Timbers on YouTube. So check him out. Like and subscribe to his channel. Great musician, good guitar player. He goes through McCartney's career and picks out his favorite bits and plays and demonstrates them to us as a guitarist. So check those out as well on Two Legs, and more to come as well. So thanks everybody for checking out this side sub channel of Two Legs, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.